You want to trash that legacy, that company that now Disney has screwed up the last 5 years trying to please a small percentage of minorities in America? Yeah, we're sick of it. So the more you do this, Disney, Iger, Zegler, whatever her name is, yes, this is exactly the backlash you're going to get from parents who have kids who are your customers. You're supposed to win parents over. You're talking to kids, the parents pay for the tickets. You have to be a dummy as a marketer. If I'm Bob Iger...
And you know the saying, go woke, get broke, and Disney's going to lose money on this movie, and I believe it only...
This girl does not deserve a feature-length film.
No, because they're not dwarves. For right now, that's the only jobs that are there.
They're remaking the movie. They just got rid of the dwarves. But they have one token dwarf amongst these magical creatures. You actually just went backwards. You actually just erased the dwarfism side of it. The disability, like we're a disability group. You just erased that whole...
Imagine stepping into a theater expecting Disney's oldest princess, Snow White, to make a triumphant comeback, only to discover a production weighed down by controversy, clashing egos, and an ending so disastrous that many are calling it one of Disney's biggest failures in years. From the outside, the Snow White remake was positioned to be the next grand live-action success story. A lavish budget, a talented cast, and a nostalgic source material practically guaranteed to reel in fans new and old. But behind the enchanted castle and glittering facade, tensions brewed that would ultimately overshadow every drop of Disney magic. It started innocently enough. Rachel Zegler, fresh off her acclaimed performance in West Side Story, joined the project with a burst of enthusiasm. Critics hailed her as Disney's new rising star, praising her vocal talents and on-screen presence. Meanwhile, Andrew Burnap, a Tony Award-winning actor celebrated for his nuanced performances on Broadway, found himself on the cusp of what could have been a career-defining transition from stage to screen. Everything looked promising. The synergy of two gifted newcomers, a beloved fairy tale waiting to be reimagined, and a studio eager to replicate the box office hits of its past remakes. Yet from the moment production began, rumors leaked about conflicts between Zegler and the creative team. She spoke openly in interviews about the original 1937 Snow White, describing it as outdated for modern audiences, going so far as to question its storyline and central themes. At first, some fans welcomed the idea of a contemporary spin. Disney had been modernizing many of its older animations, but it quickly became clear that Ziegler's comments were striking a nerve. She didn't merely suggest improvements, she questioned whether the beloved classic even had a place in the 21st century. That unsettled a huge swath of Disney purists who felt protective of the iconic story that shaped their childhoods. The backlash was almost immediate. Twitter lit up with hashtags demanding a boycott. YouTube critics and pop culture commentators jumped in, dissecting every one of Ziegler's quotes. It wasn't just the remarks themselves that fanned the flames, it was the tone. Viewers felt the actress was dismissing something deeply cherished with a casual flick of her hand. While some fans tried to defend her, arguing that every remake needs an evolution, the general sentiment was that she showed little respect for a foundational piece of Disney history. Andrew Burnap, on the other hand, approached the film with what many on set described as meticulous dedication. Accustomed to the rigors of live theater, he arrived prepared for long rehearsals and heavy script analysis. Where Zegler was making bold statements and last-minute creative pitches, Burnap preferred consistency and clarity. Over time, word trickled out that the two were at odds. Zegler supposedly pushed for script changes on a near-daily basis, while Burnap felt every alteration was an assault on the film's cohesive vision. According to whispers, entire scenes would be rewritten just hours before filming, leaving Burnap scrambling to catch up and deliver his lines in a convincing manner. Crew members recounted how frustration would flicker across his face whenever he discovered yet another major shift in the storyline. As tensions boiled backstage, marketing for the movie ramped up. Disney released teaser images showcasing a bright, modern spin on Snow White's iconic look. But the press junkets became increasingly fraught. Journalists couldn't ignore the swirl of online controversies. They peppered Zegler with questions about her critical stance on the 1937 classic, and her responses, though attempting to justify a modern reinterpretation, often came off as dismissive of the nostalgic heart fans held dear. Burnap, on the other hand, tried to stay diplomatic, initially deflecting direct questions about their on-set dynamic. Behind the scenes, however, rumors persisted that he was growing more exasperated with every new interview. When premiere week finally arrived, the tensions spilled over in a spectacular fashion. The film's opening numbers landed with a thud. A meager $30 million over the first weekend, a shocking result for a project rumored to cost more than $200 million. Critics pounced. Review after review lamented how the movie seemed to lose its fairy tale essence in favor of a disjointed, modern storyline that felt more cynical than enchanting. Some singled out Zegler's performance, claiming she appeared disinterested in the legacy of Snow White, while others pointed to Burnap's sidelined character as evidence of a messy script that couldn't decide on its core story. Social media fumed with viewers claiming the film mocked the classic's wholesome charm, something audiences still craved in a live-action rendition. While Disney scrambled to figure out how such a highly anticipated film could tank so hard, Andrew Burnap reached his own breaking point. In one promotional interview, a reporter broached the subject of creative disagreements, prompting Burnap to make a subtle but unmistakable remark about certain key figures who refused to compromise or engage in meaningful collaboration. Though he never mentioned anyone by name, audiences quickly inferred it was about Zegler. Insiders said Burnap had been seething for weeks, frustrated that his contributions were repeatedly dismissed and that the film had devolved into what he believed was a hollow vanity project rather than a respectful homage to a timeless Disney legend. Before the dust settled, multiple sources leaked that Burnap vowed never to work with Zegler again. The public reaction split down the middle. Some applauded him for taking a stand, suggesting he was the voice of reason. Others accused him of fanning the flames when the movie was already embroiled in enough controversy. As the film's box office figures continued to plummet, with a drop of more than 60% in its second weekend, Disney executives found themselves in dire straits. They had poured enormous resources into reimagining Snow White, but were forced to defend an adaptation that alienated its core fan base. In boardrooms, the fallout was brutal. Questions about future live-action endeavors, such as Tangled or The Princess and the Frog, suddenly became fraught with concern. If Disney's most iconic princess could bomb so tragically, what would stop audiences from rejecting other remakes that toyed with beloved storylines? Marketing teams tried last-ditch efforts, behind-the-scenes clips of set designs, cameo appearances by other Disney characters, and even a rushed social media campaign to rebrand the film as a fresh, empowering take on a classic. None of these moves reversed the dire financial trajectory. Angry fans continued calling the remake a betrayal, and the tension between Zegler and Burnap only fueled negative press. For Zegler, the controversy might have been a double-edged sword. She remained a hot topic of conversation, which is rarely bad for publicity in Hollywood, but her reputation among Disney loyalists took a severe hit. For Burnap, the experience threatened to overshadow his legitimate talents as a performer. Some industry professionals admired him for speaking openly about preserving a film's integrity, yet others worried that publicly criticizing a major co-star could brand him as difficult to work with in an environment that often values diplomacy over honesty. In the weeks following the film's dismal showing, social media continued to churn out hot takes and savage memes. Fans posted side-by-side comparisons of the original Snow White's gentle innocence and the modern film's seemingly jaded outlook. YouTubers released exposés on how behind-the-scenes drama can sink a big-budget production, zeroing in on Zegler's remarks and the rumor that Andrew Burnap felt he had been pushed out of the creative process. In industry circles, the fiasco stood as a glaring example of how remaking a cherished classic can backfire if not handled with a delicate balance of respect and innovation. So, how did a story designed to showcase Disney's first-ever princess end up causing such a stir? It's a tale of colliding visions, one that wanted to push boundaries to reflect contemporary ideals, and another that believed certain parts of the Disney formula are timeless and shouldn't be rewritten on a whim. Neither Zegler nor Burnap seemed entirely willing to yield, leading to a standoff that seeped into the final product. As fans stayed home rather than shell out for a ticket, Snow White underperformed to such a degree that it cast doubt on the entire slate of forthcoming Disney reimaginings. Ultimately, the Snow White remake became a cautionary tale for studios. Even the biggest name in family entertainment can flounder when it loses sight of what made a classic beloved in the first place. The fiasco underscored how quickly audiences can mobilize in opposition if they feel a cherished legacy is being disrespected. Meanwhile, in the swirl of finger-pointing, Andrew Burnap's frustration took center stage, illustrating the fallout when collaborative processes break down and star power overshadows mutual respect for a project's core essence. Now, months after the film's release, the conversation lingers. Will Disney learn from this and tread more carefully when revamping age-old stories? Or will it continue to bet on name recognition and large-scale marketing, hoping controversies fade and profits eventually roll in? As for Zegler and Burnap, Hollywood continues to watch their trajectories. One lost film doesn't necessarily define an entire career, but the memories of this botched Snow White will hang in the air for some time. In the end, maybe the most important lesson is that not every fairy tale needs a sweeping overhaul, and that sometimes, if you stray too far from the magic that made people believe in happily ever after, the spell can break beyond repair.